This week is a very important week for those of us, like me, who have been fighting in the ENVI committee of the EU Parliament against palm oil usage in the Renewable Energy Directive in Europe, since we will have an important trilogue scheduled on May 17 on this subject. The European Union is and must remain at the forefront of the fight against climate change and for the protection of the environment. In the European Parliament, I made this a key topic of my political mandate by firmly defending legislation against the indirect effects of first-generation biofuels on land use in 2015, and since then by leading debates on the EU's climate commitment and the Paris Agreement. In recent years, imports of palm oil have been booming in Europe with its growing use as fuel in road transport. Nearly half of imported palm oil is now used in biodiesel production, which represents 1/3 of biodiesel consumption in the EU. These imports of palm oil generate many negative externalities, including, of course, the deforestation of rainforests and the destruction of ecosystems in Southeast Asia. But they also lead to an additional environmental cost related to the transportation of this palm oil by boat for thousands of kilometers. Is it reasonable to continue importing deforestation and CO2 emission in Europe to fight against climate change by having such massive flow of bad biofuels entering the EU market? Indeed, there is a good alternative to these imported biofuels, which are those made in Europe from good local crops. To fight against this dramatic environmental impact, but also to preserve human and social rights in these regions, the European Parliament decided last January to put an end in 2021 to the outcutting of palm oil-based biofuels in the member states' renewable energy targets. This is the result of a compromise greeted by a large majority of the European Parliament during a plenary vote from all over the political spectrum. This is also, and above all, the reflection of public opinion as expressed in many polls in France, in Germany, and more generally in Europe. The majority of our fellow citizens are concerned about environment and biodiversity and wish to limit palm oil consumption. If its use in the food sector is still difficult to avoid today, there are real alternatives to palm oil in biofuels, alternatives that are more sustainable and more local, as I was able to discover during several visits to rapeseed and colza biodiesel production sites in my constituency. As policymakers, as elected representatives, we must make decisions which meet citizens' expectations, which tend towards the common interest and which protect our planet and vulnerable population. Let's end the use of palm oil in biofuels as much in Brussels as part of the ongoing negotiation of the Renewable Energy Directive than in the south of France, fighting against the reconversion of the La Mède refinery into a palm oil biofuels production site. Today, I'm calling my fellow rapporteur of the RED II proposal to block any compromise with the Council on May 17th, which would not contain a clear exclusion of palm oil biofuels starting in 2021. We have been very patient. It is now time to act, no time to launch yet another study on deforestation as proposed by the Council.